There is a lot to cover in Genesis chapters 15 and 16. The first thing we see is God making a promise to Abram. He says, look up at all the stars in the sky. Remember, they're not living in the city here, right? So you can see all of the stars in the sky. And God says, I, Abram, am going to give you more children than all of these. And it's extremely important that you understand verse 6 of chapter 15. And Abram believed the Lord, and God counted it to Abram as righteousness. Abram wasn't even given really laws by God yet, right? We're reading all this before the Ten Commandments. All that comes into place. But Abram was counted righteousness. It was counted righteous because he believed God's promise. And this is how we're made righteous today, by believing in the Lord Jesus Christ. Not by what we do, but believing in his promise. This is always how God has worked. And so then we see the Lord almost like signing the contract. So splitting two animals in half, and typically both parties who are agreeing to the contract would walk through almost to say, if I don't obey, or if I go back on my word here, make me like these dead animals. But who walks through? Abram falls asleep. And we see this picture of the Lord walking through the animals. What do we learn about God's promise with Abram? That God is giving an unconditional promise. God is not going to go back on his promise to Abram. God is going to bless Abram. He's going to give him more offspring than the stars in the sky, and he's going to bless the whole world through Abram. How does he do that? By sending Jesus, a descendant of Abraham. And everyone who believes in Jesus is blessed, no matter where you're from, no matter your ethnicity. Those who believe in Jesus are counted righteousness in Jesus and are blessed in Jesus. God says he's going to give Abram land, but he doesn't give that land. He won't give that land, until the sins of the Amorites are complete. God isn't just going to kick these people off their land. No, but God knows that these people are going to sin more and more and more. The evil that they do is much of it's recorded in history. It's going to increase. God is not unjust, but he knows that their sin is going to increase more because he holds history in his hands. Next, in chapter 16, Abram has been given this promise that he's going to have all these offspring. And notice it never says that they have to come through Sarai. It never says they have to come through his wife. And so they do something that was pretty common in this day, surrogacy. Seemed to make sense at the time. And so Abram gets Hagar pregnant, and she has a baby. But God says no. The promise isn't going to go through Hagar. It's going to come through a son that's born right out of Sarah, but that's going to come in future weeks. Last thing I want us to see is how Sarai sends her servant Hagar away, and Hagar and her son Ishmael are out destitute in the wilderness. But God goes and finds her. And she says, "You are a God of seeing." Listen now. The Lord is a God who sees the cries of the oppressed.